Welcome to Coffee with Democrats, a sensible platform for progressive conversations. Coffee with Democrats is a grassroots movement dedicated to hearing from Democrats, candidates, legislators, and friends from all political backgrounds who want great conversations. Coffee with Democrats is committed to increase Democrat voter registration and Democrat voter turnout by making voting more exciting and meaningful. And now here's your host of Coffee with Democrats, Kevin Dawson.
Hey, good morning and hello. We're Coffee with Democrats, an expanding grassroots movement connecting blue dots throughout America. We host Zoom meetings every Thursday from 10 to 11 a.m. Central Time with people who want to make a difference. We hear from candidates, elected officials, activists, expert organizers from across our 50 states. But today we're going to go off script a little bit. We're going to change this from being on Thursday to a Monday afternoon release of this video, because it's such an important day. Tomorrow is 12/12. It's December 12th. And tomorrow is the special election down in Comanche County, Lawton, Fort Sill, Elgin, Cache, all of those communities down there, Medicine Park, all of those communities are going to have this special election. And we really want to encourage people to get out and vote. And today we have a special guest with us. Nabilah, I'm going to butcher your last name, so please help me out.
Rawdah, you did good.
Yes, apologize for that up front, but thank you for being on Coffee with Democrats today and being our special guest. And from my understanding, you are an activist.
I am working with Black Voters Matter,
Good.
and so we are working in the SD 32 special election.
So tell me a little bit more, Nabilah. What do you do to with Black Voters Matter, and how is that going to help Larry Bush?
Yes. So just a little background on Black Voters Matter. It's actually a Stacey Abrams program out of Georgia. And the whole goal is kind of what they were able to do, mobilize and empower the Black vote in Georgia. And so they've kind of taken that model and they're spreading that across, all the different states. So I'm very excited to be connected with them and to help bring that to Oklahoma. But for this election, why that's so important is that SD 32 has like the third or fourth highest Black demographic of any Senate district in Oklahoma. So it's super important to get out the Black vote for this election. There are 3,000 registered Black voters in that district. I believe the win number is like 5,000. So right. I mean, the election is won or lost by, how many Black voters that we can empower to turn out and show up, and so that's been my focus and goal.
Excellent. Now, I understand you actually have is it a bus or a van that's coming in? I may have misunderstood. If you want to explain how that works.
Yes. So there is a Sprinter van, and it's wrapped with the Black Voters Matter. I've been driving it down to Lawton. I want to say almost every day this week, but also last week I was doing that as well. So this may be the first day in the week that I haven't driven down to Lawton, but it's exciting to drive around town. I think people see it. We've been taking people rides to the polls. I think we were able to get at least 20 people the other day rides to the polls. So that was exciting that people are interested, getting the word out, getting excitement, getting people talking about it. A lot of people didn't even realize an election was happening.
Right.
It's just a good reminder for everybody. So I think it's been pretty successful in terms of invigorating and empowering the local voters there.
Sure. So if I remember right, you've got some activities coming up tomorrow that it's both today and tomorrow. You're going to be phone banking, and you're going to be, is it text banking as well?
Yes. So we're doing phone banking, and I can drop that link in the Zoom chat.
Okay.
But yes, we will be phone banking today and tomorrow. So even if you're not able to come down to Lawton and physically do something, you can certainly still help no matter where you are in the state.
Right.
You can help with this, and I just wanted to touch up a little bit about why this is important, not just for Lawton, but for the whole state.
Please. Yes.
And that is because right now in the Senate, um, it's controlled by moderate Republicans, and
Right.
so but it's one or two votes away from being um, controlled by the extremist faction of the Senate.
Right.
And so while getting people into office is a democratic process, a lot of times the legislative process in the building is not very democratic. And so by having a change in the Senate pro tem, what that means is that will dictate kind of what bills get heard, what bills
Right.
don't get heard, what goes to committee, what doesn't get to committee, all of those kinds of things. And we're one vote away, one person away from having that legislation be controlled by the extremist faction of the party. And so that's kind of why this is how it affects the entire state. So really kind of the balance of power. So if you think about pairing an extremist Senate with our governor, having those two elements together, it can end up being a very, I perceive as dangerous kind of combination. And so it's not just this isn't just affecting the people of Lawton. This election's going to have consequences for the whole state.
Right. And again, to put this in perspective, because we really need to think about this, there's a lot of emphasis what you're doing with African American Black people within the Comanche County Lawton area, but this isn't just affecting just that group of people. This impact that we're really talking about in the state of Oklahoma at the state level is something so dramatic as far as what could take place with women's health care. We could see the Senate and the House of Representatives and the governor working against women and women's health care and reproductive rights to the point we would be just like the Texas legislature is, where we're seeing somebody who has a fetus who is not a viable fetus, that now we're going to put the mother's life at risk down in Texas, and this lady may die as a result of the legislative action. And that's something that we all need to talk about and think about. So I'm going to put that back into your court and let you talk more about that, because I think our followers need to hear more from activists like you and less from me.
Yeah, so people think that it can't get worse, but unfortunately it can. I'm in the Capitol. I hear people, hear legislators talk about that they want to get rid of, say, like birth control.
Right.
So Dusty Devers, the Bush's opponent, I mean, he's trying to get rid of no-fault divorce. He's anti-contraceptive. So he's anti, IVF even. So, which is kind of like a fringe thing. But I mean, he's extreme even by Republican standards. So there's a lot of Republicans in Lawton who are very weary of this man. And so it's just a level of extremism. And everybody, I want you to keep in mind that we're going into an election year. And so the rhetoric, a lot of times because of that, they try to outdo each other and get the most attention. And so sometimes the legislation is a little bit more extreme than usual, than in non-election years, because they want that attention. They want those, showing that I am the true Republican, or whatever game that they're trying to play. And so you're pairing potentially an election year, which already has heightened rhetoric, with a potential extremist controlled Senate, plus our governor. And so this is not only just dangerous for women, but minority groups as well. And also I want to mention the danger that the tribes are in.
True.
Because Stitt really is going after the tribe now. And in terms of the people that he's endorsing, they kind of have that understanding to that they want to be working against, the tribal compacts and against the tribe. So it's really not a good deal for, a lot of us.
Right. So really the major demographic we need to talk about is the demographic that is being impacted nationwide, or having the most voice right now, is that group from 18 to 35. That the young group is got a lot of power. They're coming out. We really need to see more of that.
So I think one of the exciting things is this younger generation, I feel, is more politically engaged and involved compared to other generations at the same age. So we had more political involvement with this this younger age group than the boomers did at their same age group during the height of, say, like Vietnam War. So I think people are more tuned in. I think it was a real wake up call to see that rights aren't guaranteed. Like, we have this mentality that rights are always going to move in the correct direction,
Yeah.
not realizing that rights can slide back and you constantly have to fight for them. And so I think that was a big shocker for the younger generation to see, hey, your mother had access to reproductive rights and you don't. And so I think having rights taken away has lit a fire under a lot of the younger generation. But you're absolutely right. We do need to start engaging them, in more and more numbers, because it's definitely the hope. And we've seen that with Democrats across the country, is they're winning elections with the younger voter turnout for sure.
Right. One of the things about, we talked about the no fault divorce. When we saw no fault divorce become enacted nationwide, and I guess it's not really nationwide, but it became a thing where most of the states in the United States adopted it. We saw a 20% decrease in the number of suicides among married women. Those numbers went down because the people, before no fault divorce was put in effect, they got into marriages that they couldn't get out of, or either through pressure, through abuse, or financial situation, where no fault divorce allowed people to get out of bad situations. And so again, we saw a huge decrease in the amount of suicides. Do you want to talk a little bit more about how that might impact the younger people that are getting involved, and how dangerous Dusty Devers is when it comes to taking away those rights? Again, it's just that constant theme of trying to take more rights away from people, but particularly women.
Yeah, it's definitely it all boils down to just control over women, right? So
Yeah.
we saw this on a national level where they held up military confirmations just because they were upset with the military's abortion policy. So we put national security at risk just so that we can further control women. I mean, that's how deep it goes. And you're right, like no fault divorce. And I kind of saw coming like a year or two ago with the Steven Crowder thing, where his pregnant wife had left him, and he went on this whole rant that we should get rid of no fault divorce. So I knew that was coming down the pipeline.
Right, right.
But it is, yeah, you're right. It's just a further way to control women and make it harder for them to leave abusive situations. I also want to call to attention that in Oklahoma, we're like the top state domestic violence. So we live in a state that is number one in domestic violence, women incarcerated. We're number one for women incarceration. Also, our state stopped doing Section 8 vouchers because we have a lack of affordable housing, and so there's long waiting lists. But what people don't realize about that is when you go into a domestic violence shelter, one of the first things that they do is they give you a Section 8 voucher, so that way you're able to get out of that situation and find a home. So right now we're in a situation where they can't do that, and those battered women are going basically out on the street. And so also in that situation, your kids get taken away from you. So you were going to see an uptick in children in, foster DHS system type of thing. So just not a good state for women all around. And then you pair that on top of having no reproductive access. And they've cut the food stamp benefits, they've cut Medicaid, the earned income tax credit has been, reduced, student loan payments have started up. So inflation has just really negatively impacted the bottom percentile of people. So groceries that may have cost you $98 pre-pandemic are now costing you, $250 or something like that. But the food stamp benefits have not increased, right? And so we're just keep squeezing and squeezing and squeezing. Um, you know, it's becoming cruel and unbearable for large portions of our population.
Yeah, and particularly a population that hasn't seen a minimum wage increase for over 10 years.
Exactly.
So we've got a lot of people that are working poor.
Yes, yes. It's affecting all of us. And I don't know if I can get a little bit off topic with the other election that I'm involved in.
Yes,
But
please, go ahead.
I just want to let everybody know that SD 32, this is a winnable election. So Democrats can win in special elections. We've done it before. We can do it again. This is really a turnout game. Very few people show up to special elections. So even if we are outnumbered, as long as we just outperform and outshow up, we really can win this. So I just want to let everybody know how important this election is, not just for Lawton, but for the whole state. So we're into a situation where our Senate right now, the balance of power is in jeopardy, going from a moderate Republican control into the extremist faction control. And that has just very dire consequences legislatively statewide. And so anybody who can help chip in. We have a phone banking, so if you're not able to come to Lawton, but if you're able to come to Lawton, we also need you to. So help door knock. Everybody needs to chip in, do their part, because this isn't just for Lawton. This is for all of us. This goes back to so the other campaign is also on December 12th. That is the arena in Oklahoma City coming up. And so basically my interest in that is every political fight is a fight of either human rights or resource fight. There's a limited number of resources. And so just to be clear, I'm not anti-Thunder. I'm not anti-building a new arena. The question is just who's paying for it and how equitable that is. So right now you have only 700,000 people in Oklahoma City, but they're having to take on a billion-dollar burden. And this isn't like a public use facility that anybody can just walk in and use, like you have to pay it. And so we estimate that's going to cost people about $1,200 a piece. And so what is kind of my concern about that is Oklahoma City is 47% brown and black. So you are talking about a $500 million wealth extraction out of the brown and black community to pay for this arena. Which, by the way, is not going to have any increase in general seating. It's just going to have an increase in box seating. So, you're asking the poorest of Oklahomans to finance box seating for millionaires, and it just doesn't seem right. So in comparison, they said that we can solve the affordable housing crisis and end homelessness. And the cost of that would be about $1.3 billion. So the same cost for an arena is the same cost to, end affordable housing crisis and homelessness for the next 30, 40 years. And so really it's just we're in so much hurt in our state. There's so much tremendous needs. And it's just a question of equitable, who's paying for that, and is this equitable? especially since taxpayers are responsible for 95% of the bill.
Yeah, and my understanding is there's no commitment to raising the minimum wage for workers. So again, we're asking people to work poverty levels within the arena without any increase in pay, and again, working for the millionaire rather than working for the common person.
So the pay is, if this passes, the pay would be set at $15 an
Well, it
hour
would be okay. I was
for
wrong about that.
full time and 12.50 for part time. Um, I just don't know how many I don't think any more new jobs necessarily are going to be created out of this. So there's not really a jobs impact. It will create more construction opportunities. But in terms of long-term jobs, we're not increasing the number of jobs being added to it. So yes, this deal is the worst NBA deal in history. There's no other team where the owners only pay 5% and the general public has to pay 95%. It would be the worst deal in NBA history. So a no vote is not no on the arena or no on the Thunder. It's just no for this deal. It'll bring them back to the negotiating table and say, hey, we're willing to be your partner. We're just not willing to be fleeced. So you got to come with a better deal, and I think we can get that renegotiated. I don't think the Thunder owners are leaving. So the NBA, when the Sonics left, the NBA set a committee basically to prevent teams from moving around. They also don't want the team to be moving because they're about to be doing an expansion and adding 2 more teams. So I believe Seattle and Vegas will be getting a team. So they're not trying to allow teams to be moving. So the ownership can sell their share, but that doesn't mean that they can then pick up the team and move it as they want. And I really believe that's an emotionally manipulative tactic. The Miami Marlins manager or president had talked about the best way to get people to buy an arena is people love their team. So you just have to tell them that their team is going to leave, and it'll make people, go out and vote for it. And then the reporter asked him, well, was your team ever going to leave? And he laughs and says, no, they were never going to leave. So it is, I believe, one major emotional manipulation. We have 22 economics professors from different schools across the state that have signed on to a letter explaining how bad this deal is economically for us. And it's really just socialism for billionaires, right? So the cost of this arena goes to their evaluation. So if we would be adding $1 billion onto the Thunder financially, even though the city owns the arena, the cost of the arena is included in the evaluation of the team. So it'll make the cost of the team go up $1 billion. They're about to renegotiate their contract with ESPN for television rights, which will add about another $2 billion. So they're not walking away from, $3 billion on the table. So I really don't think that there's a universe in which they will be able to move the team.
So one of the other things that I was reading this morning about the Thunder program and this arena is the negotiation for the contract did not set a ceiling. Maybe it was $900 million was
Yes.
what the plan was, but it could actually turn out to be $2 billion. You may know those numbers better.
Yes. So what was negotiated was 900 million was the minimum. There's no negotiated maximum. We estimate that the project cost is going to be 1.3 to 1.5 billion dollars when it's all said and done. But there's a lot of other hidden costs that nobody's talking about. So for example, what happens to the old arena? They haven't told us what happens to the old arena. We don't know. So potentially we will be covering the cost of building a new arena while still having to maintain operating costs of running the old arena. And you've lost your major tenant for the old arena, right? Because they're now in the new arena. So
Right.
how do we pay for the old arena, or what do we do with that? So that's number one. Number two is the opportunity cost. So we will not get a MAPS project, like a MAPS 5 vote. This delays that for another 6 to 8 years. So you're talking about putting every other city project on hold for, potentially 6 to 8 years. We're not going to get any new project development. The other thing people aren't talking about is that with the maps currently, it's a pay as you go, so we're not in debt for these projects. With this Thunder Arena, they said that they're going to do short-term financing. So we're looking at issuing, bonds or something to that effect. But this is the highest interest rate time that we've experienced in years. So we're looking at about $45 to $75 million in interest, just to cover this. So it's just, once you start adding it up, you realize that the cost, that 1.3 billion, is actually a lot more than just that. And I also want to point out the real salt in the wound is who's issuing the bonds and who's benefiting from the interest. Who's that interest going to? And it's going to the banks,
Right.
but the owners are the bankers. So you have George Kaiser, who's the Bank of Oklahoma president, and then you have Jeff, I forgot his last name, but he's the private owner of MidFirst Bank, which is one of the largest privately held banks in America. So they will be the ones buying the bonds. So they will not only profit from the value of their asset going up, but they also then profit off the interest payments that are being paid out. So the only last thing I would add is the silver lining in all of the arena deal is the community benefits agreement. So that's kind of like an insurance policy that was put in place that if this passes, at least we could get something out of it. So I would say that the community benefits agreement was a big win for labor. Just from here on out, we can now demand a community benefits agreement for every kind of municipal project and building. But what I'm a little bit worried about is the way that they stacked things is that labor only has 2 votes out of 7. So that does worry me. So if it does pass, the thing that I ask is that people continue to pay attention to this project, because we will need to shift focus to supporting labor and making sure that they get the fair deal that they were promised. A lot of things were promised to labor. Nothing is really in writing though. And so we need to make sure that the city upholds their part of the deal and honors their commitment to labor.
All right.
All right.
Hey, it's a pleasure to meet you. I
No,
really mean that.
I'm so grateful to be on and that you would share your platform to spread the message.
Well, it is our pleasure. Thank you so much, Nabilah. You
Thank
have a good
you.
day.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye.